Good morning, my friends. Thank you so much for your presence, and I wish everyone peace in our hearts. In the science of psychology, there are many theories that attempt to describe human behavior, the way, the reason why we do the things the way we do. And one of the famous theories of psychology is cognitive behavioral therapy. What that theory describes is that our actions, the things that we do, are based on our feelings, our emotions. But our emotions are conditioned by our thoughts, which means if we have a negative thought, we will feel bad emotions, and those bad emotions will lead us to do bad things, negative things. If we have positive thoughts, we will create positive emotions, and those positive emotions will lead us to do good things. Albert Ellis, the creator of this theory, he understood the fact that the way we think shape the things that we do. So if you sit down with a cognitive behavioral therapist, the therapist will actually challenge you to revise your thoughts, because our thoughts they shape our emotions, they shape our actions. Therefore, we must understand our thoughts. Where are we getting them from? Now, definitely, our thoughts, they are shaped by how we interpret things. When you see something, when you actually, you are contemplating a situation, your perception of things shape the way you're going to think. Your thoughts, once again, shape your emotions, your actions. Unfortunately, most people, when they are interpreting what they're seeing, it's not an objective interpretation, but a subjective interpretation. What that means, whatever they're seeing are through the lenses of their own past experiences. As a result, they might have a false information that will lead them to a real feeling. And let me give you this analogy. Let's say you live in a neighborhood. So you have neighbors A, B, and C. Now, since I don't have a board here to write, I'm going to ask you questions just to make sure you're following the argument. How many neighbors I have? What are the neighbors? Did you drink coffee this morning? Okay, so let's say louder. How many neighbors you have? Who are the neighbors? C. So neighbor A, he comes to you in the beginning of the week. It's a Monday. And he says, are you aware of what neighbor B is saying about you around the neighborhood? And then you said, no, I'm not aware. What's going on? Neighbor B, he's saying that you cannot be trusted, that no one should invite you to their homes because you are a thief. You might steal. So now you stop for a moment and then you said, who in the world is neighbor B to say this awful things about me? I was never at his house. I never stole anything from anyone. How come he's saying this awful things about me? And then suddenly, we have these emotions of animosity towards neighbor B. 7 days go by. How many days he went by?
7.
A week later,
8 and 7.
a week later goes by. Neighbor A comes to me again and said, remember what I told you last week about neighbor B? Yes, I remember. You told me that neighbor B, he was gossiping about me. he was saying these awful things about me. So neighbor A says to you that he made a mistake. Neighbor B never said anything about you. It was actually neighbor C. So now you shift your emotions of animosity towards neighbor C. So my question is, throughout those 7 days, the information that you had, was it false or true? The information that I had was false. But the emotions I was feeling, were they true or false? True. So here we have evidence that false information can lead us to have real emotions. Based on false information, we create real emotions. Neighbor B never said anything about you, was actually neighbor C. The information was false, but that led you to have real feelings against neighbor B. So what that means, when we are going through problems in life, we need to analyze carefully if we have the right interpretation of what we're going through. Because our perception will change the way we feel about things. So a cognitive behavioral therapist's main goal is to help the client have discernment, the ability to distinguish what is factual information from what is false information. The only problem I have with these theorists that came up with these ideas is that they rarely mention that other people said the same thing before. When you read scientific books, especially in the realm of human behavior, field scientists have the humbleness, the humility to admit the information was taught before. Usually what they get, they might find the information somewhere else, and then they create a whole nomenclature, a set of words to describe what they're teaching, but then they don't mention the reference, what they got the information from. There are a group of people that lived in Mexico hundreds of years before Christ, the Toltecs. And there's a book called The Contract of the Toltecs, and it's a contract to live in harmony within a community. And one of the premises of the Toltecs' teachings is never to make an assumption. Never to make an assumption. Now, look how many years we know that information. By making an assumption, we are creating real feelings about things that we are not sure. So we hear gossip about our name, and suddenly we make an assumption that it must be true, whatever they're saying. And it can be simply a gossip. Someone who has envy. They are unhappy with their own life, and now they try to belittle you, they try to discredit you, and they create a gossip. So we make an assumption of the information as if it is true, and that creates real feelings. So in order to solve our problems, the first thing that we need to do is to analyze how we see the problem, the perception of what is going on. Because our perception changes the entire dynamic of how we're going to approach the solution of the problem. That, in reality, is what we do in any realm of knowledge. In science, in medicine, for example, the most important part is the diagnosis. The doctor, he is not trying to make an assumption. He's looking for real evidence of the cause of the problem. And why? Because if I arrive at a wrong diagnosis, I will prescribe the wrong treatment. I will prescribe the treatment for the diagnosis that I think the individual has. So the most important part here is a correct diagnosis. Once again, to analyze what is the real cause of the problem. Because our perceptions, they shape our thoughts. Our thoughts, they shape our emotions. Our emotions, they will shape our actions. Our actions, they shape our habits. Our habits, they shape our character, and our character shapes our destiny. What is our destiny? Is where we get in life. That's our destiny. Where our destiny comes from? Well, our destiny comes from who we are, our character, the individual that we have become. Now, what is our character? The collection of our habits. If I like to wake up every day late, if I don't like to work, if I expect others to do my obligations, what kind of habits I have, positive or negative? They are very unhealthy, negative behaviors, negative habits. If I like to wake up early, fulfill my responsibilities, I like to always update my brain with knowledge, what kind of habits do I have? Positive. So positive habits will lead me to have a healthy character. A healthy character will lead me to a happy, peaceful destiny. And where do my habits come from? From my actions. Things that we do repeatedly become a habit. Where do our habits come from? Where do our actions come from? Our emotions. The way we feel will shape the way we act. Where do our emotions come from? Our thoughts. And where do our thoughts come from? From our perception, the way we see things, the way we interpret things. So I am trying to give you the foundation of the problem-solution dynamic, which is to have the right interpretation of what a problem is. Usually, when we mention the word problem, it appears that it is something against us. A situation in which that is supposed to be there to work on our disadvantage. That's how we interpret the situation. It is a problem. It is something against me. I have a crisis. It's something that is working against my well-being. This is how usually people interpret their problems. But in Chinese, are you aware that the word crisis is synonym with the word opportunity? Whenever you are in crisis, it means an opportunity is hidden for you. So this is a very different way of interpreting a difficult situation. I don't have a crisis, I have an opportunity. So basically, if you are the glass half empty of a guy, when you have that situation, you will see that you have a problem. If you are a half full glass kind of a guy, when you look at the situation, you say, well, I have an opportunity in here. It goes both ways, depending solely on how you interpret your perception of the problem. In Spiritism, we learn what we label as difficulties are indeed nothing but opportunities for our growth. It is impossible to grow without effort, without doing our own work in order to develop ourselves. So knowing that knowledge, whenever we have a problem, we are not getting into a state of despair. By interpreting problems as opportunities for growth, whenever I am facing them, I am not creating a mind state of despair. What is despair? Despair is when I believe that my tomorrow will be worse than today. If I get into a state of despair, then whatever problems I'm facing today, I increase them in intensity, and I will probably create additional problems on top of the original difficulty that I had. A simple explanation of this theory is the fact that when people have problems, some of them will drink alcohol because they want to forget their problems. And working in the jail system for the past 11 years, I have seen plenty of people that while trying to solve their problem by ingesting large quantities of alcohol, all they have done, they have multiplied their problems 1,000-fold. They went out to drink to forget their problems, and they hit someone with their car. So now they get into the jail system. They don't care for the next 3 or 4 hours. They go to sleep. They don't care. They're too drunk to notice what's going on. But then, on the following morning, they're sober. Is the original problem still present? Yes. But now multiplied by the problem they just created for themselves, which can be a vehicular homicide, or at least losing their license for the next 6 months. So obviously, that state of despair caused the individual additional problems for the simple fact that he interpreted the situation as a circumstance against their well-being. When we study what Spiritism has to offer, that we're here for spiritual development. We are here also to develop our intellect. That information, when we understand it, when we comprehend it in depth, that gives us sound faith. That gives us rational understanding that problems are nothing but opportunity. So what that does to me, it gives me hope. And what is hope? Hope is the certainty that my tomorrow will be better than today. If I have the certainty that my tomorrow will be better than today, whatever problem I'm going on at this moment, I am not pulling my hair. I'm not creating problems on top of problems. I'm handling as best as I can, knowing there are certain things that I can't change and there are things that I can definitely change. But I am at peace with myself because I know life is not against me. God is not against me, and this is nothing but an opportunity. So that interpretation of what a problem is, it is extremely helpful to set us in a course of solution. So now that we have the right interpretation of what a problem is, it's an opportunity for us to grow. Now, who has to solve the problem? Well, we have to solve the problem. Unfortunately, we have this inclination, this propensity to ask other people to solve the problem for us. Well, that is not in our favor when we ask someone else to solve the problem for us. Think of a teacher, for example. A teacher will, for a whole month, present the theory to his students. At the end of the month, the teacher will give a test, an exam. And now the students, they could interpret this as a problem that they have. And usually they get very upset against the teacher because the teacher's being mean. He's giving us a test, an exam. What is the teacher trying to do? Is the teacher trying to be mean? Is the teacher trying to humiliate the students? Obviously not. The teacher wants the student to prove to themselves that they have learned the material. It's going through an exam that we solidify the information we learned in theory. It's only by practicing that we actually incorporate the teaching in our lives. So if the teacher looks at a student and believes that the student is having difficulty, and he actually grabs the exam from the student's hands and he solves the problem himself, did he help the student? No, he didn't, because now the student will never learn. So it's going through the practice of actually testing the theory that we know if we have learned or not. And most people, unfortunately, they fail to understand that part. When someone dives into the knowledge of Spiritism and they learn about the science of life, the philosophy of life, and the moral ethics and consequences of knowing this information, they believe that by simply reading the books, all the problems will be solved. Well, the books, the information would definitely help us to avoid problems, because now we are learning the ability to distinguish what is right from wrong, what is healthy and unhealthy for myself. It's not a question of a sin or doing things against God. That's not the point. The point is what is healthy and unhealthy for my behavior. And once they go through that phase, they now will get to the phase in which they tell themselves, I know this stuff, I have learned, I've studied, yet I cannot put into practice. I don't understand why. I'm here for 5 years. I've been doing what I'm supposed to do for 10 years, and yet I don't get it. Well, just imagine we have Professor Abigail standing here for the next hour, and she would talk to us about ballet. Now, would that make us ballet dancers at the end of the lecture? Yes or no? I want to hear it. No. If Abigail spends the next 10 hours talking about ballet and we all sitting down, would that make us ballet dancers? No. If she spent the next 5 years non-stop, can you imagine? No. A lecture of 5 years? And we all just sitting down listening to Abigail. If we watch all the movies about ballet, would that make us ballet dancers? No. Maybe. If we just sitting down, we could spend an entire reincarnation reading, watching, and talking about ballet, but that would not make us ballet dancers. There is only one way and one way only, and that is to actually dance. And it is hard work. And at the end of your career, you get lots of broken bones in the process. Because you give your best to become an expert in any area of field. So theory, in order to be solidified in behavior, must have the sweat of work. And there's a lot of people who believe that just by getting the theory, the work is done. They missed the point. We need to do a lot of work. And in order to develop our intellect, in order to develop our morality, we don't have God or the highly evolved spirits solving the problem for us, because they are true teachers. And true teachers will not solve the problems for the students, because the students will never learn. So our evolution is made up of problems. We label them problems, but what were they? Opportunity. When you study human evolution through paleontology, anthropology, these are the sciences that, try to understand what took place a long time ago by collecting bones, vestiges, and by analyzing the bones, they could even learn about human behavior. That's anthropology. And our evolution as Homo erectus, when from an ape, our body became of a human being, approximately 200,000 years ago, from the get-go, we faced many problems, many challenges. Now, the theory goes that as apes, we lived in trees. Now, the trees that we lived as apes, we call these apes hominids, similar to us in appearance, in physiology. As hominids, we used to live up in trees. Now, can you imagine how uncomfortable that is to live on a tree? And then we had a challenge. And the challenge was there were some fruits that were hanging on the laurel branches of that tree. So think that you up there on the 3rd floor of your tree, and on the 1st floor of the tree, there are fruits hanging. So as an ape, you actually have to bend down in order to get your fruit. So for the ape, this was a problem. It was a challenge, but also it was an opportunity. Because an ape, in order to move around, must use the 4 members of their body, both hands and both arms. But with this challenge, which was an opportunity, an ape actually had to jump from the tree and now reach for the fruit. So the repetitive process of jumping on the ground and reaching for the fruit forced the ape to become Homo erectus. It forced the ape to straighten up their spine and now walk only on their 2 feet. This is one of the theories. Another theory is that because the ape was constantly on the 4 limbs, that created excessive heat on the front part of their body. So they needed to spread the heat of their body. Otherwise, they would get overheat, too warm. So in order to do that, they needed to raise their upper limbs. So once again, that forced them to be straight, to become Homo erectus, men that stand up straight. Now, imagine if the apes were in the tree and we actually had other individuals just sending the fruits to the ape. Will the apes ever get down from the tree and stand up in an erected position? No. Therefore, there would be no evolution. The machine, the vehicle that we use, this body, would never improve in physiology. We'll still be working on our 4 limbs. So when the ape decided to get down from the tree and get the fruit, it became Homo erectus, approximately 200,000 years ago. This is the Paleolithic age of our evolution. We were nomads. Nomad means that we have to constantly keep moving, looking for source of food. We get to one place, we find food, we eat, and then once the food is gone, we have to move and look for more source of food. What's the problem with that? Well, very hard to establish continuity of things if you're constantly moving around. If you have a safe place nearby, like a cave, you have to abandon your cave because there's no more food around. So you have to constantly move. That became a challenge. That became a problem. They lived in caves, some of them, to protect themselves from the animals. So they have to move from one cave to another. Now imagine if we had people to solve the problem for them. We had all the Homo erectus in a cave, and suddenly they will get pizza delivery to them. Chinese food right there, full of sodium. Here it is. We're going to present to you your meal for the day. Will they ever get out of the caves? No. So they had to solve their own problem. What they labeled as a problem was nothing but an opportunity to develop their intellect, their intelligence, their ability to learn. And as a result of this problem, always constantly having to move, they discover what historians consider to be the greatest invention of all times: agriculture, the ability to plant and stay right there waiting for the food to come up. That is considered to be one of the greatest inventions of all times. Because with agriculture, now we could establish our communities. We could remain at one place. But with plantation, what you need is a source of water. So now where are we going to live? We're going to live near the rivers because the water is right there. So the great civilizations of history were born near the rivers. So now we move from the Paleolithic stage to the Neolithic stage because we discovered agriculture. We created agriculture. Now we're able to create tools. We became now Homo habilis. We have the ability to cut stone to make a knife for us, to make a weapon so we can hunt. We are now can manage fire. And those achievements, because we had lots of problems, led us to develop our intellect to a certain point that now we sat around cooking our food amongst other people, and that forced us to communicate with one another. And that ability to communicate with one another, not only we developed our intellect, but we developed our ability to socialize, to be with one another by the simple fact that we're cooking a meal together. And cooking a meal, which led us to digest more protein into our body and to talk about the challenges we had for the day in hunting, that forces our brain to grow even more. These are different theories because there is no common agreement within anthropologists and paleontologists how specifically these things took place. There were many hominids evolving at the same time, and one of them led to us. Let me open a parenthesis in the story of our evolution. What they are certain of, that all races, no matter which kind of race individuals think they belong to, we all came from Africa. All of us. We left Africa and we walked to the other continents. And when we left Africa, our skin was very dark for the simple fact that we were near the equator. We received lots of sunlight in the region of the planet. But as we moved to the north of the planet, our skin did not get as much sun as we needed because of the pigment. So as a result, our skin became lighter and lighter to allow more sunlight to come in. Why do we need sunlight? Well, to get vitamin D that is so important for human function. Without vitamin D, we literally die. If you go to a prison, and I hope you don't try to solve your problems the other way. If you go to a prison there, each cell has a window right there. Now, that's not out of charity. It's because the prisoners need to receive sunlight to produce vitamin D. So as we moved from the center of the earth, we received less and less sunlight. As a result of that change, our skin color became lighter and lighter and lighter. But we all came from Africa. So this concept of race is nothing but cultural. Scientifically, we all came from the same family. Isn't that the symbolic teaching that we learned from the Bible, Adam and Eve? Because in Spiritism, we know that we need to interpret the Bible through its symbolic teachings. So Adam and Eve were not two individuals. It is the symbolism that we all came from the same source. And indeed, science is here to give us evidence that human evolution started in Africa. So we all are Africans. Do you understand that, my friends? I think that's very important to know, isn't it? Especially the times that we're living in which some people's arrogance make them think that because of their skin color, they might be better than other people, worthy of more rights than the people they think they're better of. So I think it's important to know that information, it's spread the way it should. We all came from Africa. So closing our parentheses, all these challenges of our evolution were nothing but opportunities to develop our intellect. And when you read in the Spirit's book about our evolution, Allan Kardec was so wise that indeed he asked the question, which part of us evolved first? What can cause our evolution to be faster? And the spirits, they answer that first we evolve in our intellect, and then our morality. And then Allan Kardec asked, how come we develop our intellect and then our morality? Well, that's because our intellect helps us to discern right from wrong. And by discerning right from wrong, now we have the tools to put into practice the right behavior because we can distinguish the wrong one from happening. So once again, challenges, problems, difficulties are opportunities for us to grow. So whenever we are faced with a difficulty, we should ask the question, what is the opportunity here for me? Instead of asking God to solve the problem for us, we should instead ask God for strength. Give me courage. Give me wisdom so I can overcome the currently problem that I'm facing, because I know this is an opportunity for myself. And by understanding this process, whenever we're faced with a difficulty, it's nothing but an opportunity for our growth. When we were living near the rivers, think of it that you were able to plant rice, for example, as a Homo sapiens. You know agriculture, and you're aware of yourself, and now you're planting rice to feed yourself. But it gets to a point that you're tired of rice. And now that you're tired of rice, this becomes a problem. You can't eat rice for an entire year. So now you look for another community who now plants beans. So now you could sell your rice in exchange for their beans. So you have variety in your meal. But now it gets to a point in which you might have rice, they don't have beans, and what you're going to do? Since you don't have a material to exchange. And that's how money was born. So now we have these coins that we give them value, because things only have value because we tell them that they have value. We tell ourselves that this is gold and gold is valuable. But in reality, this has no absolute price, does it? Aren't we the ones who give value to things? So we looked at this shiny metal things and says, well, we're going to call this money, and we're going to exchange these valuable things for what you have. And that's how money was born. So all the advancements we had was a result of things that we labeled them initially as problem, as difficulties. To bring more into the modern world, there is a guy who, in South Africa, he faced many technical problems with his invention. But he believed in himself, and he continued to always overcome his challenges by creating a better product. Nothing came easy for this man. He had to continue giving work and more dedication to his product. And once he was able to come with the product, he created a platform for the magazines to publish their material. And when he sold that a platform for the magazines to read their material, he now designed something else. He designed a bank that is virtual. And using a virtual bank will help us to overcome the anxiety of buying things online. You know, credit cards are stolen very easy, the information. So this man came up with an idea to create a product in which people don't have to give their credit card information all the time when they're purchasing something. They could use this virtual bank, and that virtual bank will keep the information safe, and you could even buy anything that you want around the world. And this is how PayPal was created. But this man didn't stop there. He decided to sell PayPal. And PayPal was sold by the billions. When he came up with the PayPal idea, his father lended him $28,000. With that money and a persistent mind, knowing that problems are nothing but opportunities to solve, opportunities to grow and develop your product, he created PayPal. And years later, he sold it for billions. Now, this man, he could just buy an island by now and rest and have vacation for his entire life. But this is someone that has a mission to literally contribute to changing the world. Because missionaries, they are everywhere, not only in the ethical arena, but in the intellectual arena as well, the scientific arena as well. So he decided to create a car. A car that looks beautiful, a car that is fast, and most importantly, a car that does not depend on fossil fuel, not on gas, not on gasoline, not on carbon, but a car that can run on electricity. And he created the Tesla. Have you seen a Tesla out there on the streets? Beautiful car, isn't it? All the electric cars before the Tesla, ugly looking cars. But the Tesla, it's awesome. Not only it's awesome, but it drives by itself. You sit in the car, and the car just takes you. Aren't we in the future? It's amazing. That car, you could just program where you're going and fold your arms, go to sleep, and the car takes you. We're not talking about the year 2050. This is happening as of now. That's the Tesla car. Now, he almost lost his billions. He almost went to bankruptcy, but he believed in the product. And he also worked very hard to put theory into practice. And now the car is famous worldwide. There is a cheaper model that's coming by, and people have to wait in line 2 years to get that car. 2 years. It's selling like hotcakes. Now, he could just stop there, have vacation forever. Did he do that? No. He decided to create a solar panel company because he believes in harnessing the energy from the sun. It's a different moment in our evolution that we're going through, the change of technological phase. We're going through very special moments that we are not extracting from Earth anymore. products, material, raw material to produce our energy. We're actually harnessing the energy from the star. And so he created solar panels. But his solar panels are very unique. Some people, they don't install solar panels on their homes because it gives an awkward appearance to your home. So you know what he did? He created a solar panel that actually looks the shingle itself. And you could change the color of the shingles just any time that you want. As you please, you can change the color. Selling like hotcakes. Did he stop there? No. He now believes that the continuation of our species can only be assured if we conquer other planets. So he now designed the SpaceX. And what is the SpaceX? It's a company that has as its goal to land on Mars. But it already started delivering food to the International Space Station. So SpaceX, it's a private company that sends its private jets to the International Space Station to deliver food for the astronauts who live in the International Space Station for a price way cheaper than NASA. And this is why he is literally changing the computer industry. He changed the car industry, and the man now is changing the spatial industry. And he's less than 50 years old. His name, Elon Musk. Most people don't know the man, but he's definitely changing the world. Now, when he sees a problem, does he stop there? No. This is an opportunity to develop my intellect, an opportunity for growth. And that man, indeed, he's changing the world. Probably most of us are not Elon Musk, but we definitely have the capacity to change our own sphere of action, the world that we live in. And we can only change the world we live in by looking at problems as opportunities for our intellectual, but most importantly, our moral development. And that's where Spiritism completely changes our attitude. Because to develop our morality, we need moral challenges. To develop our intellectuality, we need intellectual challenges. Where do I find intellectual challenges? Well, in intellectual problems. Where do I find moral challenges? Well, in moral problems. And where do I find moral problems? With people. And there is no way to develop our moral virtues without living with other people. Difficult people in your life are opportunities given by God to you to develop your moral virtues. Suddenly, your mother-in-law, from being this nasty woman, becomes an opportunity for growth. The lady exists to help you develop your patience, your tolerance, your compassion, as much you exist for her to do the same thing, obviously. Actually, there is a story about this man who hated his mother-in-law. And he was tired, he wanted to take some time off, go on vacation. And he said to his wife, you know, I love history, and I want to visit the place where Jesus walked on this planet. And his wife said, absolutely not. I'm not going to some old city, watch old things for vacation. I want to go to a place that's hot, summer. I want to swim. I want to do something different. And the husband said, no way. I want to go to the historic site. I want to see where Jesus was born. I want to see all these things. And they were fighting for a whole month, deciding which place they would go for vacation. So the woman finally gave in and says, okay, let's go to your boring Jerusalem. But I tell you this, we're going, but we're taking my mother with us. No way, said the husband. I want to go on vacation, not to hell. Are you kidding me? Taking your mother with us? And another month of fights again. And then he finally gave in. He wanted to visit so much Israel that he said, let's take your mother with us. So now they arrive in Israel, and they're going everywhere to the historic sites, and they go to shallow places, and they go to mountains very high, and all that changing pressure had a very negative impact on his mother's-in-law body, and the woman died. So now here they are on vacation. The woman is crying, her mother's dead, his mother-in-law is dead. So the doctor sits in front of them and asks them, what do you want to do with the body? And he says, well, what are the options? Well, if you want to take your mother-in-law back to the U.S., it's approximately $50,000 to transport the body. Now, if you want to bury her right here, it's going to cost you about $1,500. And he says, well, prepare the body. We're taking her back to the U.S. So the doctor said, oh, my God, you're willing to pay $50,000 just to take your mother-in-law body back to the U.S.? And he says, yes. And the doctor says, may I ask you why? Well, I heard that Jesus resurrected here. I want to make sure she remains dead. Difficult people in our lives are nothing but opportunities. That's who they are. I cannot develop tolerance with easy people around me. I cannot develop patience if I don't have those to provoke me. If right now we had the ability to go to better worlds of highly evolved beings, highly evolved spirits, that would not be convenient for us, because those beings would not provoke in us the emotions that we need to work on them. We would never get off the level that we find ourselves in. Earth is the perfect school for the stage we find ourselves in. So by having that perception of our problems, everything else changes, because now we know what is that we need to solve them. We need to learn. We need to study. Coming here Sunday morning and just listen to this invitation of knowledge, it's not enough. It's a beginning. It's a very healthy beginning, but it's not enough. We need to dive into the information, read it, reflect on it, and see the day as an opportunity to put into practice. We're not here just to entertain ourselves with the knowledge. We're here to go out there and on our daily activity, put the information into practice, because that will be the only way that we can empower ourselves intellectually and morally. Thank you so much for your attention. Are we live on Facebook? Because I might have the police waiting for me after the lecture, depending how I answer the question.
After the men were elected and we had March, I had a really soul-searching time, really, because this whole thing is bothering me a lot. And so the point I got was we were too complacent, and we needed something to shake us up. And I figured that is my way of seeing things, because I cannot bear with what's going on. So I keep thinking, we needed this because everything, the earth is in transition. We need something to shake us up. And I think that's what we got. And it's up to us to find solutions to the problem that is coming.
Anyone else's view? Because then we can go all to the same police car together. Right? We stay in the same cell in prison. Thankfully, one of the beacons of the United States Constitution is the freedom of speech. So we can say anything we want. It's the beauty of this Constitution of the United States. Before we talk about the answer itself, the problem that he proposed, we understand in Spiritism that being a politician, it is a very delicate, dangerous mission. And there are many definitions of politics. And amongst the many of them, there is the management of power definition and the power to exert influence. Politics per se, it's a beautiful profession because you have the power to manage resources, to benefit a lot of people. That's what politics is, your capacity to influence many people at the same time. So you can appreciate the beauty. Back in 2006, Charlie Rose had a guest on his show, Tom Frieden. And Charlie Rose was asking Tom Frieden the harmful effects of cigarette smoking. And then Tom Frieden gave a very thorough explanation how nicotine can cause lung cancer. And then Charlie Rose, says to him, "You're very knowledgeable about science." And he said, "Why didn't you dedicate yourself to become a doctor? And instead you became a politician." And he says, "Well, as a politician, because Tom Frieden, he is the commissioner of the Department of Health of New York City. He said, as a politician, I was able to change the policy of cigarette smoking. And because of him, it became prohibited to smoke in restaurants in New York City. What happens in New York City has an impact throughout the world. This is one of the reasons why it's called the capital of the world." And after that, they went on to change the laws smoking in parks, public places. And it was only 3 years that the policy was in place. And according to Tom Frieden, the commissioner of Department of Health for New York City, 300,000 people stopped smoking. Out of those 300,000, through his scientific deductions, he calculated that at least 100,000 wouldn't get cancer because they stopped cigarette smoking. So isn't politics a beautiful thing? Yes, it is, because you can have the power to influence lots of people at the same time. Nonetheless, if we don't have the right reasons, the right motives to be in that position, we might allow ourselves to be corrupted. And instead of using the power to help the majority, we're using it to attend to our own interests. Now, do we need a public office to be a politician? No. Any position of power, we are in a position of politician. If there are two people in a mountain, those two individuals, they need politics. Rules to harmonize their experience living together. One needs to obey the right of the other. That's sort of law, politics between those two people. At a home, are we politicians? Yes, we are. A father, a mother, we become politicians because we are exerting power. We are managing resources. We are exerting influence on other people. As a teacher, at our job, are we politicians? Yes. So before we make any accusation of someone else's job, we need to know if we're doing the job as well as who we're criticizing in our own sphere of action. Am I a good father? Am I a good mother? Am I a good teacher? Am I a good employee? Am I a good boss? Am I exerting my function as a politician in my sphere of action without corruption? We need to ask ourselves these questions before we throw our wave of criticism into whoever we want to throw our negative vibrations. And that becomes very harmful because the individual, the politician, the mayor, the governor, who constantly is bombarded by all these negative thoughts, the individual now has more propensity to do negative things. They are receiving all this collective negative vibration. Now, if we were in that position, is that what we wanted from the people? Obviously not. What do we want to receive? We want to receive positive vibration. So we should include, it's our suggestion that we include in our prayers, good vibrations for people in power. Because chances are, if we were on those same positions, with that mentality, with that character, we will probably do the same or even worse. So in our prayers, God, protect Mr. or Mrs. X so they could perform their job well. Help them understand how important it is their job to influence the entire world, the community. So important, and help them. So we're sending these vibrations. And that's what we feel. That's what we want for them. Yet our intellect, we learn how to distinguish right from wrong. So it is impossible not for us not to see where are the mistakes. We clearly see the mistakes. To think that everything is beautiful and perfect. It is detrimental as seeing everything negative everywhere. We need balance. So in our heart, we want the best. We wish the best. But our intellect, we see the mistakes. So if we're going to talk about it, we should talk about it with dignity, with respect. All that prelude is just to answer the question. What should we do now in the current scheme of things? Should we see it as an opportunity? I am not talking about the individual because I don't know the individual. I was never with him. I never spent time with him. So it'd be wrong of me to judge the person. But as a politician, we have evidence of the turmoil that is causing. People are very anxious because the evidence seems that he is working to benefit a group of people in detriment of a lot of people who supported him. This is the evidence that we see. I'm not saying that he's doing it. It's the evidence that we see. And how can we use that as an opportunity? Well, whenever we get sick, whenever our body goes through physiological changes that are detrimental to our well-being, if we don't have any symptoms, that is very dangerous. Someone who has a heart problem without any symptoms, the day they have the heart attack, they die because they were completely unprepared for the situation. They had no symptoms. What is a symptom? A symptom are the exterior manifestations of the disease. If you have a cold, if you have a virus, you don't present the symptoms. Right now, we all have the virus of cold in our body. Is anyone here have the symptoms? Is your nose running? Do you have watery eyes? Are you getting the chills? No. Is the virus inside your body? Yes. So your immune system is so strong right now that fights the virus, so you're okay. When the immune system gets weak, then the virus wins the fight. And now the symptom comes up. I get watery eyes, runny nose, I get the chills. So someone who has cancer and there are no symptoms, what happens? The day they go to the doctor, the cancer is full blown. There's nothing they can do. They're going to die. So symptoms, although we don't like them, they are essential for us to solve the problem. So the opportunity I see in the current situation, that the administration behavior is bringing out lots of symptoms that we as a people need to work on. Because if it's hidden, it's very bad. It's doing all the harm without us seeing as people. So all the chaos that have resulted from poor administration, it's helping us become aware of all the symptoms that we need to work with. Because if we don't know that they exist, how can we solve them? Yes.
In a situation where someone is doing, let's talk with the ABC neighbors, right? Let's go back to things. Let's say, come to your attention, someone's behavior, it is hurting others. You think it is hurting others. And then you find out it is, and you give it a chance, and then change it. It is rules, like said, we make our own rules. And then you really need to find out if that is true, then you talk to your neighbors to find out if it is true that that person can hurt others. But then your neighbors tell you, it is true. But the person didn't mean harm. The person is doing bad. The person is doing wrong. But they don't want us to do what the person is doing. But the person broken all the rules. And now they say you have to be because we are broken the rules too. Solution.
She tells me something specific without telling me what it is. and that forces us to give a general solution that would not be the specific solution. It's very hard to answer those kind of questions because when it comes to human behavior, it is so unpredictable. What can happen? So I might give an answer to what she asked. What if someone is doing something bad? Is it our obligation to tell everyone? But then now, everyone is doing the same thing, so now should we be quiet about the behavior? That's basically what she said. You know, it depends what it is to begin with. Is the situation about selling lemon cakes in the neighborhood? You know, the individual was saying, I'm selling lemon cakes, and now we found out they are not lemon cakes, they're strawberry cakes. You know, how harmful that is. But if it's heroin, then we change completely how we have to face the problems. It depends on the situation itself. When it comes to how to deal with other people who are doing bad things, the Spiritist position should be of always help. Now, when we use the word help, immediately what comes to people's mind is that we're going to agree with the individual. We're going to embrace the individual. Well, you're doing, I understand you, but I'm going to help you, I'm going to forgive you. That's not help. Someone who is intentionally causing harm to people in society does not deserve to be in that society. This is what we have jails for. We are not against the individual. In reality, we are for the individual because we understand through the law of cause and effect, action and reaction, the more wrongdoing we allow that person to do, the worse they will be off with their own moral debts. So I will remove the individual from society and place him in a safe place. That's what we call jail. Now, am I against this individual? No. Am I judging the person's behavior? That's another word that is completely misinterpreted. People say, well, you can't judge people, you can't judge, so we should be blind and not see people's mistake. When we study, when we learn, that's exactly what we learn to do, to judge. What is to judge? To distinguish right from wrong. The spiritual judgment is to believe that we would never do what the other individual is doing. If we had the individual's mentality, if we were under the same circumstances, chances are we will probably do exactly what the other individual did. So that helps us to bring to their same level. That helps us to have compassion. When we understand someone else's behavior, it doesn't mean I agree with them. It means I understand why they did it. And that understanding brings me to compassion, to suffer because the other individual is suffering, to understand the other person's pain. Therefore, I would try to help the individual the best I can. And if it's physical harm, something really bad to the community, that individual is sick, needs to be in prison. But why in prison? We as a healthy society should provide the best treatment for that individual to rehabilitate themselves. I'm not against you. I am not in favor of this action that you did. I am not against the being that you are, because through the Spiritist perspective, we are brothers and sisters. We all have the same Father. In our prayers, don't we say, our God in heaven? Well, if we're saying our God, automatically we're saying we're brothers and sisters of one another. I'm not saying my God or his God. I'm saying our God. If it's our, then we are brothers and sisters. Therefore, I am not against the human being that you are, because we're brothers and sisters in humanity. I don't agree with the act, the single act that you did, or the acts that you have perpetrated. So therefore, you're sick. You can't be there. Let's put you in a safe place. And now, let's give this individual the best psychological treatment for them to repair their mistakes, for them to learn and repair for their mistakes. And some people would not be in this physical existence, and some of them will be in prison for the entire existence, according to our current law. In the future, penal code might change how we try to rehabilitate people. But unfortunately, the system is designed in such a way that we're not doing too much rehabilitation. Now, if the other people start to do the same wrong thing, by everybody doing something wrong does not make right. When we do something wrong, and we are by ourselves, our consciousness tells us, this is not right. We don't need a pastor or a priest to let us know that this is wrong. We don't need a rabbi. Our own consciousness tells us this is wrong. But throughout our evolution, we have created different defense mechanisms to make ourselves deaf when that voice of consciousness starts to hit our head. And what do? We look for other people who are doing exactly the same thing. Because if they're doing, we simply say to ourselves, well, they're doing, it's okay for me to do. She's doing, they're doing, so we're all doing it, so it's not wrong. In Nazi Germany, it was very hard for people to realize they were doing something wrong, because they saw the majority of the people doing. It got to a point that as a German citizen, if you didn't hate the Jews, you had a psychiatric disorder, because now you're against the norm. If everyone hates the Jew, then hating a Jewish individual is the norm. Liking it, respecting it, there's got to be something wrong with you. But we can have millions of people doing something wrong. It is still wrong. It doesn't make it right. Now, that probably did not answer your specific problem that you have. but it's a general idea. The golden rule is do unto others as you wish others would do unto you, or the opposite of that, do not do unto others as you wish others will not do unto you. Do I want anyone to betray me? No. Therefore, let's not betray anyone. Do I want people to gossip about me? No. Therefore, I'm not going to gossip about anyone because it's not what I like in me. This natural law is perfect in a sense that the measurement of pain is us. If it hurts in us, it must hurt in other people. Therefore, I'm not going to do it because I know the pain. We're good? So, I am very thankful to come at North Beach Society. I feel at home whenever I'm amongst you because you make me feel so comfortable, and I appreciate very much. So to finish our little meeting of the day, I will recite a poem by Castrovis. And some people say, why poems are recited? Why people write poems? Do you know the movie Contact? This movie, the main character is Jodie Foster. It's a beautiful movie. It was dedicated to Carl Sagan, the astronomer that brought so much knowledge to us about the universe. So in this movie, they receive a message from a nearby star, Vega. And they create a machine, and this machine can only have one person being used to send the individual to wherever place they will go. So there was a whole dispute amongst the astronomers and politicians who was going to be the first person to contact an outside civilization with a machine constructed, designed by them. So can you imagine the fight? So the movie goes on to straight fights about this situation. So what happens is that the scientist who designed who found the message, she thought that she needed to go because she was a scientist. And by being a scientist, she understands the language that was sent by them, the language of mathematics, that in theory is a universal language. Is English a universal language? No. Is Italian a universal language? No. Is music a universal language? Yes. Mathematics? Yes. 1 + 1 is equal to everywhere. So she says, this is why I must be sent. So she is sent. And through a wormhole, it's a bridge between two different places in the universe. You get very far in a very quick amount of time because it's a bridge in two different distinct parts of the universe. She arrived in Vega and she saw different solar systems. So there's a part of the movie that she's actually floating in air inside the machine, and she is looking at a quadruple solar system. It is so beautiful to see the sunrise and sunset here on Earth. Sometimes the afternoon are simply astounding. The colors that you see in the sky, the red, blue, yellow. Can you imagine having 4 suns, 4 stars orbiting your planet? What kind of afternoons there will be? And the nights and the sunrise. So she's looking with awe at all this, and suddenly she says, they should have sent a poet. They should have sent a poet. And why? Because poems have the ability to describe the undescribable, the most difficult things, feelings, emotions. And most importantly, poems synthesizes. It puts into short and compact information what sometimes take some speakers an hour and a half to say to a group of people. That's what a poem does. So we have spiritual poems, poems that were sent by spirits through the hands of mediums. So the medium Chico Xavier received this poem called March On. And if you look in YouTube videos and you see how fast he received the poems, it's just astounding, because not only you have the content of the poem, which is very deep, but also the rhymes, which are complicated in nature. Just for the fact that you can write that poem that fast with content and rhyme, talking about so many different subjects at once, that in itself, it's a marvel. It's real evidence of spirits interfering in the life of people. And this poem is entitled March On. What does that mean? It means that we're here and we must move forward. Don't worry about your past. We cannot travel in a time travel machine and change what happened. We can always look towards the future and change it by modifying our present. And obviously, he received the poem in Portuguese, and we have adapted the poem into the English language. And it's an adaptation. It's not a literal translation, because you'll kill the rhymes by translating word for word. So we adapted to the English translation so we can all savor the beauty of Castro Alves' wisdom. He said, "Life is full of mysteries, encompassed of laws of beauty, which compels us to evolve. From God we emanate, multiple forms we reincarnate, longing for perfection and love. In humanity we seek the truth from many myths, yearning for peace and evolution. And we cause in our path multiple lives and deaths, victims of our own disillusion. From the eternal struggle, building ourselves from the rubble, we learn ways to overcome. Despite the pain and misery, nevertheless, we grow ceaselessly from darkness to dawn. From the raindrop, a plant reached the top, triumphant at last. The root appears to be gloom, but manure converts to perfume, transmutation at its best. The plant will be crowned with flowers all around, birds' opera on their arrival. But flowers too shall pass, their martyrdom is a blast for the ground's revival. From nature we're taught, work hard, that's the law, all life is in movement. Sculpting through sacrifices, we'll carve blocks of vices. Inside a stone lies a monument. Lessons from pain, change will always reign, even narrows, tyrants without seas, under the law of reincarnation. Through many trials and expiations, they too will be messengers of peace. Let no one be idle. Today's angel was yesterday's Adam. Perfection is everyone's destiny. Life's purpose, splendid. God's love, transcendent. Our school, universe's eternity. On earth from time to time, sublime beacons of light dissipates the shadows away. Their presence are felt forever, and as they dwell, transforming night into day. Never in history a sacrifice such as the one portrayed by Christ transpired for the sake of truth. From the cross, the message is heard. Forgive all. Always serve. Your pain I will soothe. It's Socrates and the hemlock. It's Caesar's war being fought, inflaming oppression and cruelty. It's Selene, his art, the imperialism of Bonaparte, spreading domination and tyranny. It's Dr. King's I Have a Dream, Lincoln's speeches, never seen, the incarnation of renovators. It's the embodiment of humility from the charitable Francis of Assisi, the gospel resuscitator. Blessed be the teachers who illuminate the seekers, inspiring virtues and light. Bliss is yours to conquer, and although perfection is yonder, your progress is bright. In the entire universe, divine celestial verses decree, march on. A celestial love awaits. Have hope, have faith towards the infinite to come. Thank you, God, for the blessing of speaking, to my friend Daniel for receiving me, for Abigail for inviting me, and to you all, thank you for listening.